I come from a country that used to have European Parliament elections, and is this the first set that the UK has been out of? It's probably the second set that the UK has not been part of. But those elections very much had downstream effects in the UK, and some of those involved parties that some people would think of as far right, certainly hard right. If you go the UK Independence Party, that no longer exists in that form. It was really clear that those elections, although they were sometimes about Europe, they were fought very much on domestic concerns and had enormous domestic effects in terms of bringing down governments. In some cases, Theresa May fell for various reasons, but it was the European elections of 2019 that was sort of the thing that knocked her off. But there have been really important downstream effects this time, and France is probably the most obvious one. And does what Macron has done seem to you like is it an overreaction, or is it a rational response to what's just happened?
That's a very difficult question. I think there are really two sides. So Macron basically called snap elections for the assembly. France is a presidential system, so this is not for the president,
yeah.
obviously. But it's still very important because the Rassemblement National, so Le Pen's party, won big in the European Parliament elections, and likely, or it seems like, they can be successful in these quote unquote parliamentary elections. And so Macron was basically saying, well, people have voted in a dumb way. Let's give them the real chance to vote in a national election where they will see the results or the consequences of their vote. I think it's an enormous gamble. And I think it really comes down to people's risk taking and preferences around that, whether they think it's a good idea or not. I think it can go either way. I generally, however, don't really think that. I think the assumption behind Macron's idea is that this was a protest vote mostly, or that people voted for Le Pen's party because they were unhappy with other things, but they don't really think it seriously. They don't really consider it an actual vote. And I think what we see from research is that often voters of hard right, far right, or populist parties, yes, there is a segment that is a protest vote, but most of them vote for these parties because they agree with many of the ideas. Like, they vote on an ideological basis. And so in that sense, I am really uncertain whether this will pay off well for Macron. And of course, if Rassemblement National wins, then that will be a difficult period for France going forward, because that will mean a cohabitation, and that will be a difficult period for Europe going forward,